Hello, everyone. I'm not absolutely certain who's all with me today, but I'm going to wait for a couple people to join in. I think we have maybe another minute. I have two people here. Welcome. You're probably asking yourself, what is norm therapy? Well, norm therapy is our innovative abuse care interviewing process where we help abuse victims from all over the world, right now in over 50 countries from last count, with dealing with certain types of abuse. We champion 21 different causes. And I want to first say something as a disclaimer. And I want everybody to know as you start to join in, and I'm going to do my best not to go through all these disclaimer messages and all that first. But whatever reason you're in this chat tonight, and I want you to understand that we are here to help. And our topic tonight is very important. Um, Most of the time, when abuse occurs in the lives of many, there's always one underlying theme, and that is fear. Fear is the underlying cause of most abuse. And as experts on abuse worldwide, we're norm therapists, and we define abuse in very different categories than most. We champion it well in over 21 different uh, abuse categories, ranging from narcissism, physical, sexual, human trafficking, educational, political, and other kinds of abuses, to include that of the elder community and also the community of the disabled. We champion abuses. We help them, we interview them, and we speak with them about their lives and about their opportunities to overcome their abuses. I've been doing this for almost 3 decades. Most of it was pretty much my um, hobby for some years, helping people around the world deal with abuse. Because, of course, I'm an abuse victim. So when we talk about courage, we look for how that plays a part not only in your daily life, but how does it play in your business life, as well as when you're out abroad or you're at the grocery store or you're in a parking lot looking for a space. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear; it's the control of fear. Being former special forces has been in many different life-threatening circumstances in my career. I had to learn at some point in my life that being afraid was kind of a good thing. In our brains, we have this thing called the amygdala, and the amygdala is our threat center. It works in concert with the prefrontal cortex and the prefrontal lobes. In other parts of the brain, it works in concert to alert you at a time when you should be cautious or when you should be aware. But over the past probably 3 or 4 decades in the world, people have converted their fear center into I am frightened and I don't know what to do center. And they freeze up and they call it fight or flight and they give you a choice. But it was never really meant for that. It was never really meant for a choice. It was meant to simply warn you and advise you that perhaps you were in a possibly difficult circumstance that you needed to be aware and especially situationally aware. That's what the threat center is for. But we have been conditioned as humans, and it's normally our governments, our educational systems, our family life, insofar as what the protocols that changes from the 1950s to the 1970s to the 2000s, what that family dynamic looks like, and how we understand fear. So if you're going to develop courage in your life, you first have to understand that chances are someone in your life has never really given you the permission to be afraid, the permission to not be afraid, the permission to know when and the difference. Oftentimes, I tell the tale at Norm Therapy that if we sit on your lap and we say to ourselves, to our child, you have the right for that little boy not to hit you on your shoulder. It's okay that this is how you treat little girls, Sonny. It's okay that you develop some type of understanding for respect in society. It's a good thing that you learned how to take up for yourself. It's a good thing that you listened. No one sat that child down or that teenager down and said, okay, here's your brand new car. You're 16 years old. Here's your license. Now let's have a responsibility talk. I'm not saying it's not ever done, but it's oftentimes not done to the point where it's to the person's detriment at some point in their lives. So what we do at Norm Therapy is we try to provide to you the information you need as a victim of abuse or survival. We try to have you make yourself available to making change. And I think that one of the most important things we have to do to overcome fear in our lives is to understand what is courage. Once you know what courage, and I have a document that I've created, of course, and we're going to go by that. I'm going to show you 7 different tips for figuring out how to develop courage, not only in the workplace, but also at home. And these life skills will permeate over into your every part of your daily life. If you go to normtherapy.com, you can read a lot about it, but more importantly, go to goarrow.org, and on goarrow.org, you'll find a litany and a list of therapies as well as abuses that we actually champion. And most of them, if not all, deal with developing courage. We also teach norm therapists at normtherapy.com. We have 2 ongoing cohorts right now of students becoming norm therapists, and we're in our 14th iteration of cohorts. So we've been doing pretty good in developing norm therapists from around the globe. So one of the first things you have to do about fear, and sorry about not being as advisory as I normally am with people. I just figured out how to do a live stream. Me and my team, we've been working on it. It's so intricately difficult at times, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes quite simple. I'm sure my subsequent videos and our live streams will go really well. Now, let's look at understanding fear. Before you can deal with fear, you have to understand it. What is fear? What is fear? So understanding fear is important, but more importantly is how you react to fear. How you react to fear is beyond the most important point, because most people think they can fight or flight. That's not necessarily the truth. It's what we've come up with to deal with the cowardness in the world today. Most people on the planet are cowards inherently. We're taught that since birth. Boom. And all of a sudden we're afraid. And from that point forward, our fear tends to direct our steps in life. So understanding fear and where it comes from is very important. Our parents, our schools, our workplaces teaches us how to be afraid of life, and it allow people who are abusing you to continue to abuse you. People will only ever treat you the way you teach them to treat you. This is something that's built into the psyche of every norm therapist. If you are treated in a way that's conducive to what you would accept in life, then chances are you'll stick around those people, you'll have better relationships with them, and you'll do some great things as a result with that relationship. But if you fear them in any kind of way, they will take advantage of you. Or if you fear something about them, they will take advantage of you. Why? Because that's human nature. It's human nature for you to strike when the iron is hot, for you to get the biggest piece of meat, for you to feel better about you than they feel about themselves. It's human nature. So people will take advantage of you if you let them. So what we try to make people understand is, if when understanding courage and fear, first understand that courage is not the absence of fear. It's just a control of fear. You should be afraid at some point in your life all the time. Because every time a circumstance come up in life, you need to be prepared for it. So your threat center is going to advise you, those hairs on the back of your neck, when your arm hairs blow up, that's when you should pay most attention and be situationally aware. In our subsequent podcasts, we're going to talk about situational awareness, but not right now. So the first thing you need to do is understand your fear, and you have to delve deep into your own fears and actually face them. That means go stand in the mirror and enumerate, make a list. What am I afraid of? 1, I'm afraid to stand up to my boss. 2, I'm afraid to speak out in public settings. 3, I have my children. I'm afraid that they're not going to be reared correctly so they can take care of themselves when they get older. I have so many different fears. So you just make a list of each one of those fears, and then find out what exactly do you not fear? Well, I don't fear talking to my wife, or if you're a woman, of course, I don't feel fear in talking with my husband or my pastor or my banker or my best friend. I don't have those fears. So what dynamics exist in those relationships that don't exist in the relationships where you do have fear? And you need to start dissecting those and taking a look at them comparatively. But first, before you do that, you have to understand what is fear. Fear is just your trepidation and your hesitance to go ahead and move forward something, knowing that something of peril could possibly occur. Once you know what that perilous thing is that's occurring, then you can make a very calm and non-chaotic decision about it and actually do something about it. So when I'm talking to a patient at Norm Therapy, and we have many patients who suffer from basically just fear of life. And so they allow people to rape them. They allow people to denigrate and speak down to them. And they allow people to take their money, take their time. They allow people to do that because they fear it. We teach them to overcome that fear, and instead of going around those obstacles, go through them, confront those obstacles of fear, and move forward. So you have to understand your fear first, and that's the very first point. And the second thing that's important is embracing your vulnerabilities. If you can't embrace how vulnerable you are to fear and to what extent you will have fear in your life, if you can't embrace that understanding, you're going to be preyed upon very often by many people around the world. You have to understand people will only ever take advantage of you because they think they can. Nothing else. People will only ever hurt you because they think they can get away with it. Nothing more. People will not even try to hurt you. If they had an inkling in their brain housing group that they couldn't, why waste their time? They would just move on to the next person. You won't become that victim. I'm going to do a lot of talking about that in the future and how people become victims because of fear, because every single abuse, whether it's financial abuse, whether it's medical abuse, whether it's physical, psychological, it doesn't matter. Narcissistic abuse, whatever abuse that exists is normally an element of fear as an underlying thread between those abuses. So you have to embrace your vulnerability, and you never hold back. Never hold back. Once you know what your vulnerability is, speak to yourself. If you have to stand in front of a mirror, speak to yourself and ask yourself, why am I afraid? And give yourself real answers. Don't give yourself the gloss over answer where you say, oh, I got that. I can understand it. I'll move forward. Don't do that. Actually stand there and ask yourself, look yourself in the eye in the mirror and separate yourself from that emotion of fear and talk about that emotion in a manner where it becomes clear to you exactly why you're fearful. Once you know why and you embrace your vulnerability and know that you're fearful, that doesn't make you a coward being fearful. It just makes you untrained. It just makes you a person not ready to confront. But you're not necessarily a coward, even though we're being taught all over the world how to be cowards. You know, governments tell you what to do. Your school systems tell you what to do. Everybody tells you what to do, but no one is holding your hand through those things you have to do. So fear. So with courage, the opposite, of course, is normally fear. But in this particular case, in a context of Norm Therapy, it's embracing that vulnerability. That's so important. When you know your weaknesses, strength is found in your weaknesses, not in your strengths. So you find your strength in your weaknesses. That's the only place you'll ever find them. You look anywhere else for your strength, you'll never find. So let's move on. You have to set small and achievable goals. Okay, one fear you may have is at night going to your mailbox and checking your mail because you had a long day at work and so it's dark by the time you get home. That could be a fear of yours. So what do? You reconnoiter. You actually say to yourself, I'm going to check out this entire pathway from my driveway to the mail center or right out to my box. I'm going to check the pathway and make sure that I'm situationally aware, which we will talk about much more in the future, but that I am protected, that I have an understanding of what my mission is and to its end, and set those parameters for yourself. And then you get your little mace or some people carry weapons. You get these items of protection, you put them with you, and you go at night and you get your mail. Now, I prefer you get it in a day, but not some societies around the world, you have no other choice. So then once you move out of that understanding of having to say that I'm going to set a small goal for myself, and then you achieve that, and then you do it a few times, because everything you do in life requires some type of repetition and some type of practice, and you need to put that effort forward. Being available to yourself in the workplace and at home, and understanding what your fears are. So we talked about the mailbox. It's a small little activity that you do in order to garner the strength and the courage to move forward in that respect and find your courage. But also, or even control your fear, but also in the workplace, you have a mean boss. You have such an, I was going to say ass, but I think I will say it, as a boss, and he treats you poorly. He talks down to you. He gives you the crappy assignments. He makes you sick to your stomach. You do not have where to go, and you have no quarter. So what do? You cower under. He beats you up. He gives you a crappy. You never get a raise. You never get that window seat next to the window. You always are doing something, working overtime, getting no pay, getting no appreciation. He's only treating you that way because he can. There's no other reason. I've studied this all over the world. I've talked to people from every walk of life. This boss is only treating this way because you let him. No other reason. He thinks by holding a job over your head that you're going to cower under and you're not going to be useful to yourself and put yourself in a set of circumstances where you stand up to him. He knows you won't. But the same skills on courage that you learned here today, or that you've learned in your lifetime through the action. Now, one of my patients happens to be former military. Now, a lot of combat missions, and me being former military and having similar backgrounds, we talked. And he told me once, he said he didn't feel good about himself. And I had to remind him that he's one of the most courageous people on the planet. Because sometimes we are incapable of evaluating ourselves. There's a paper you should read. It's called Dunning-Kruger, and it's about how we self-evaluate. And basically, we're incapable of self-evaluation. No human can adequately evaluate themselves without some type of discernment from others. Because we're biased. As humans, we're biased. So when I'm looking at, am I courageous enough or not? I'm waiting for someone else to say, yeah, you're a courageous guy, Mike. Then I go, yeah, I can get that done. But if I try to just go at it alone and try to create an environment for myself that I have no fear, then I'm going to probably fail at whatever it is. There must be some level of fear and trepidation with everything you do that's important to you in life. But it's that controlled fear and that awareness that fear brings, and that caution that the amygdala provides in your brain housing group that gets you through that fearful circumstance. So, of course, setting those small achievable goals, like stand up one day to your boss, just stand up. And you don't have to never speak in a negative. Just simply say that I'm not afraid. So please ask me X, Y, or Z, whatever he's asking you to do, and provide me the same amount of respect that I'm providing you. They'll probably appreciate you more for telling them how you feel about how they treat you and providing you a bridge back to be able to communicate effectively with them thereafter. They'll probably appreciate that more than you just taking their crap. So be careful about that. And insofar as going back and forth to the mailbox, I have known literal cowards who can't go to a wedding and meet someone and ask them to dance. Not because they're cowards about dancing, but they're cowards about everything they do in their lives, and it permeates out into all of their activities. And I have walked them back from the brink of just sheer self-destruction to courageous people now who people actually listen to, take serious, and become a part of the solutions in people's lives instead of just the person sitting in the background without any kind of thing to say or participation to make in whatever endeavors involved. Now they're courageous. Now they're speaking up for themselves. Now they're teaching their children, and now they're telling people how to treat them. As a matter of fact, more importantly, they're showing people how to treat them through, of course, setting small and achievable goals and doing those, and then all of a sudden your goals get larger. Understanding that fear, embracing your vulnerabilities, and setting small but achievable goals is the key to start. The next thing is no one who's ever succeeded in life has ever succeeded without failure. Impossible. Not one person. Even the trust babies who just get inherited money. It's not the test of having money that's important. It's how you keep it that's important. And they may not have gotten that lesson. They have to go through something in order to maintain and keep their money. So I'm okay with that, and that's fine. Also, I want you to understand that people who do find themselves in fearful situations, here's another thing that they try to do. They try to blame someone else. You'll see it when people are learning from their own failures and their own posturing that didn't work. The first thing they would do when they get up is point at someone else. When they do that, they're now releasing themselves from a responsibility to learn. You'll never learn if you are always shifting responsibility and of course, blame to someone else. So take responsibility for your failures first, especially in the area of courage. And it will show you, it will keep you very cognizant about what to do next in fearful or situations where it requires courage. Okay, we can talk for a while about courage, but it has to be talked about in context. The contextualization of courage is important. People think just by poking your chest out, picking up a sword and start swinging it that you're in battle. And that chances are that's not going to work. We have to look at not just being assertive, but we have to practice assertiveness. The biggest problem, I can talk about this more than anything else, with anybody in life is to be assertive. Maybe 5% of the people in the world are not, any kind of way or fashion, impaired by assertiveness. 95% of the people on this planet have a problem with asserting themselves. If you took away all the police and put them in one pile, matter of fact, if you took away all the police that's ever lived in the history of the world, everywhere in the world, and you put them over here, you take all of the militaries of everyone who's ever served in the military, past, present, or future, in any world back to the beginning of time until today, put them in that same pile. Take all the protectors of societies, the FBIs, the Interpols, and the United this and that and the other, and you put all of those people in that same pile. And then you take every heroic human being you've ever known in your life and you put them in that pile. All that who's existed throughout time. You do this, and that huge pile of people will not equal to 0.75% of the entire population that's ever lived. Very few people in the world fight for your rights. Very few people in the world protect you. Very few people in the world die and lay down and sacrifice for you. So comparatively speaking, 99% of the world live on the courage and the freedoms of the people, that 1% or that less than 1%. That's a fact. So what does that make the other 99% of the world? It doesn't really make them cowards. I see people, especially in movies, you'll see that somebody gets hit or knocked down or shot, or whatever that malady would occur. And what happens? Everybody screams. They go sit in the corner. They run. They don't know what to do. Everyone head for the hills. And that one person, or maybe two out of the crowd, stands up and they move forward and they fight through it. The reason why so many people get killed in these mass shootings is because most people freeze. And they think by hiding behind a table, it's going to stop a high velocity round. Because they don't know. They've not been taught. They've not been taught that the only way you get through a roving ambush, which is what a mass shooting is, it's just a guy roving around who already knows his fields of fire. He already knows where he's going to shoot. He knows where you're going to find cover or concealment. They're two different things. Concealment means I'm hiding behind a plant. Cover means I'm hiding behind a rebar reinforced column. They're two different things. Concealment will get you killed because he already knows that. If he starts shooting, he's already cased out the place. He knows exactly where you're going to hide, and he knows that his weapon can penetrate whatever it is you're hiding behind and still shoot you. But fear stops us from making good choices. It just stops us in our track. So the only way you ever handle a roving ambush or any kind of situation where your courage needs to be mustered, the only way you'll ever find out is to attack that issue, move forward on that issue, attack that shooter. That's the only way you're probably going to make it out of there. Because he knows when you run behind that pole, he got you. When you duck behind that desk, you're gone. So you have to practice, so you have to be assertive about your courage. You have to not get angry at yourself for not knowing what to do next. It's okay. Not everybody understands what I'm trying to explain to you today, but courage is one of those things that plays an integral part in everything we do at Norm Therapy and in every kind of abuse. As well, I'm dealing with some patients right now who have some form of PTSD. Now, we're not licensed counselors or doctors, although we have licensed counselors and doctors as Norm therapists right now. We're not licensed counselors, doctors, therapists in the traditional sense. I created Norm Therapy right out of my brain housing group, as well as many years of practice and working out small things to myself and developing this curriculum. So we're not trying to compete with the mental health care community. Most of the time, if you have a wife or a sister or a friend who's being beaten down by their husband, or the husband being beaten down by the wife, once you put yourself in a set of circumstances where that abusive entity is no longer there, very often you tend to get well quickly. You tend to become whole and find a path to your own wellness. But if you go to an already stigmatized community like mental health, and I didn't give them the stigma, it's been there since the beginning of time. Now you're a victim of abuse, extricating yourself from that abuse to walk right into another set of circumstances which could be abusive. Why should you have to go get treatment for your traumas from a mental health care specialist? I'm not downing them. Why put yourself in that set of circumstances when you can find that there are other alternatives in the world to finding your own center and your own normal without being a mental health care patient? Because that brings a great deal of other a stick along with it in your life. Now, there's nothing wrong with mental health care. That's not my point. But there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that I believe that it's oftentimes inappropriate to have a person start out on right out of a bad circumstance of abuse right into another circumstance of continual counseling. I've had people who've been on the couch for 10 or 20 years with different therapists around the world, and they'll say things commonly to us, especially about dealing with their courage and fears. They'll say things like, no one's ever asked me those questions. No one ever put me on the spot and made me feel as if I mattered and what I was saying was true or false. And I didn't expect that return of information so often as we get it, but we do. We get it all the time. And as time ensues, I'll be inviting some of our other panel members in, and I'll be inviting some of our other norm therapists from around the world in on these discussions. And this is just our first one. And thank you all for joining us. We have a small crowd because we just figured out how to work the live stream. It was kind of complicated, but I think we did well to this point. But let me get back to what I was telling you. Most people want you to be okay. And if you're thinking of abuse, when you're thinking of courage and fear, they want you to be okay. They just don't want you to be better than them. That's how it works. And a whole lot of fear is brought upon the lives of people when they know they fit into that category of thought or existence. So when you find yourself being a victim of abuse and you find that you're afraid to extricate yourself, there's another organization, and we are it. We're the only type of abuse care organization in the world that champion 21 different abuses. We don't champion alcohol or drugs or illicit drugs right now, but we will be doing that sometime in the future. We're working on all of that as we speak. But let's go back to your assertiveness. Is it assertive? Ask yourself this. Is it assertive to punch somebody in the face because they're speaking negatively to you? That's not being assertive. That's kind of being destructive. Now, when I was younger, I thought that was the answer to everything. You know, you get into an argument, knock somebody out. There you go. Or try not to get knocked out. One of the two. That was it. But then as you get older, you realize that fear makes you say and do the dumbest things. You ever watch people just not be assertive? I was standing in line for something at a function once, and one guy, we're in tuxedos, one guy turns to the other guy and hits him so hard in his face and then turns back around as if he has no problem with it whatsoever. And the other guy just stood there out of fear and didn't do a thing. Ask yourself, what would you do? First, you have to not put yourself in a circumstance where someone thinks they can hit you. That's the first thing you do. And it takes courage not to be that person or that victim. To make that sure that person knows, if you ball your fist to hit me, you'll have 2 or 3 more coming back at you. And we'll both end up in jail or we'll be fighting or something, but you will not get away with that. But they think they can get away with it, so they will. So you have to be assertive. You have to look at a person almost to say, I wish you would. Please make my day. I think that was a Clint Eastwood line. Once they know you're serious about not being abused, they will stop. Once you expose a person for who they truly are and what they stand for, it is simple to deal with them thereafter because they have no quarter. They have nowhere to go other than to leave you alone and stop whatever shenanigans that they're pulling. That is how it happens in life. And you've all seen it and experienced it. So that's another thing. Now, supportive networks, I think this is important. Many times people find themselves bullied and abused, especially in the workplace and at home even. And in school, it happens all the time. They find themselves in these abusive circumstances and they don't talk to anyone about them. They take the abuse. That's what they do. They take the abuse and they keep taking it until they normalize it, until they condition themselves that this guy, Bob, is going to beat me every day. That's what they do. And they don't ever stand up for themselves because their dad or their uncle or whomever's raising them didn't pull them aside and say, this is how you handle bullies. And it's not because he's a bad dad or an uncle. It's because he probably didn't know. He was probably bullied. And so on and so on. Remember, there's only 1% at max, maybe 2, in the world of people who will actually stand up. So if you're not one of the few that actually stands up, then we'll teach you how. I'm just giving you some cursory points of this hour lecture just to help you out. And I hope these points help you. But in reality, these are some of the things you need to practice every day. You need to put yourself with networks of people who champion courage, who champion causes that mean something, who stands out in front and takes the brunt of the fight. You need to be around people and watch people deal with circumstances that would otherwise deal with them. These are the kind of things you can do by putting yourself with better networks of people who champion. I'd rather take a class on MMA than to go knitting on Saturday and Sunday. Not because knitting isn't fulfilling to some people, but what you need is to develop a level of courage and self-protection in your life. And it's not all from physical, but oftentimes people are very solid in their efforts to make sure that they get at you one way or the other, especially from narcissistic abuse. A narcissist will feed on you, and they'll feed on your fear day and night. They're never wrong about anything. They never get anything done without it being perfect and at your expense. And they will make you people please them until the day you die because they know you fear them. That's what happens. So let's spell out a few things about, those supportive networks. Find some people in your neighborhood. Look in Google or chat or however you find your information these days. And there are groups of people out there designed to help you through life daily events. Now, at Norm Therapy, if you need therapy, we'll provide you therapy. We have Norm therapists standing by all the time. We have patients all the time that we're working with, and we're helping them better their lives. Our attestations and accolades and mentions are beyond reproach. We have some of the best and effective reviews and critique on what we do. We've been very successful at that. It's a new concept, abuse care. We've had it in drugs and alcohol and all of that for quite some time, and sexual as well as child. There are many other types of abuse, and you should check those out as well. And I want to get back to one other point that I was trying to make earlier. Since we're none of these kinds of traditional therapists, who we are a hybrid of type of therapists in the world that actually look at participatory activity in the interviewing process with you. We're not trying to tell you what to do. We're trying to teach you how to do it. We teach people to fish. That's what we do. And it took me quite a while to develop this curriculum. And some of you out there who know me for many decades know that. Now, here's where we all go wrong. Remember Dunning-Kruger I talked about earlier? We all go wrong because when we're reflecting and assessing ourselves, we're not always capable of doing it. So we oftentimes try to go it alone when we should find someone to help us, someone to look at us and give us an honest critique. Hey, John, am I a coward? And listen to John if John has your best interest in mind. And if Barbara says you're a coward because you're dating her and you're married, then chances are you're being disrespected. And that's a whole nother topic we'll talk about and how to regain your respect in your relationship. But that'll be something else that we endeavor upon later. So look at yourself. Take a reflective and long look at yourself. And then ask yourself, what do I need to do to change? What do I need to do to be better than who I am today? And take yourself seriously. Most of you have these New Year's resolutions and all of that, and you never complete them because you don't take yourself seriously. You take your outcomes seriously, but you don't take you seriously on path to that outcome. And that's why these resolutions they don't make sense to do anyway in the first place. But to have a new year in yourself, the only person that will ever make the people around you change in your life is you. And you can only do that by changing you. People will never change because you want them to change. They will only ever change because you change. Period. You have to accept people where they are, but you have to change if you want them to treat you differently. I have many patients and we have at Norm Therapy, many patients who allowed people to do certain things to them and they had to make some changes. And when they made those changes, their lives changed immensely. We are very good stewards of that kind of activity in our organization. I hope you're understanding that courage is a part of everything we do in life, just like fear is. They're really not equal and opposite. They're choices. The choices you make. You can choose to be courageous in your efforts, or you can choose to be a coward. That is truly up to you, and will always be your decision. So I wanted the first podcast or the first reel to be about, of course, courage, something that we want to put an actual value on in our lives, and it doesn't happen overnight. When you're in a situation where you think you're going to die in that moment, and then all of a sudden you're still around the next moment, you kind of treasure those moments. And it builds character, it builds courage, it puts you in circumstances where you, chances are, have to use that courage throughout your life. And that's the only way you're going to ever, have courage, is if you practice courage. Only thing somebody can do to you is ask yourself, I told my boss that I needed a raise because that's what I need and I've deserved and I've worked hard for and I've earned. And he may have looked down at me and tried to denigrate me, but then I calmly again asked him again, and then I made it clear to him that this is what I was deserving. And then do yourself a favor. This is where most people screw up. Shut up. Once you make yourself clear to whomever you're asserting yourself to, don't keep talking. That is your weakness. Stop talking. They will either have to respond, react, or do nothing. It doesn't matter to you. You did the right thing. You were clear. Now, I can talk about 50 other circumstances I can take you through to help you with this, but you'll have to come to Norm Therapy to find some of those out when it comes to courage. We will be doing special classes on developing courage in the future, workshops, and a lot of other things where you can participate, so don't forget about that. Lastly, I want to talk about an overview of something very important, and I want to get out my notes for this. We're just trying to help. This journey we're all on in life requires help. Not only does it require help, but support for someone to be there with you along the way. That's what we're all about. The nonprofit that we established is a 501c3 registered with the IRS as a public charity, Abuse Refuge Org, uses Norm Therapy, which is a for-profit company. It uses us to undergird them and provide free services through the nonprofit. The for-profit company has just gone into its for-profit and pay phase in 2024. That'd be a whole nother dynamic for us to look at. I'm anticipating all the advertising we're about to do about these particular sessions and all of the things we're about to do to promote this. We'll have a lot more followers. We just figured it out really within the last 2 hours before we went live to get it right. And so we've learned some things. Not more than 10 or 15 people have shown up today, and that's good. It could have been 2 or none. We have to start somewhere, and we have to have the courage to start today and keep this going. This Thursday, we will be talking about love. Most people, when asked what is love, they have no idea. Hear our definition of love and what we teach our patients and what we make them understand about what we do for them by understanding what we believe love is and how it should not be compromised or made transactional in any manner. We'll talk more about that in our subsequent podcast. Wanted you to know that that's only the beginning. These Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 2 p.m. we'll do these sessions for knowledge, and I'll be talking more with more scripts and more other things to say as we polish our act. But we'll also be including another podcast during that day where we'll have an actual live victim. We'll have probably 3 of them going at the same time. A live victim that we will be interviewing in public with all, of course, of the paperwork signed and all of that to show people what we do and how we establish those relationships and how we release people from their bondage of hell as an abuse victim and how effective we've been in the result. So we've been very careful about crafting that. we'll be working that out. And as time ensues, you'll start seeing more and more of these people appear and follow their stories. We're going to promote them all over the place. We really want you to participate. Um, and if you have any questions and comments and all of that, I can't really see it from here because of the type of studio we're using, but I'm going to work all those bugs out. You may have asked me some questions, and I'm not certain from the actual live presentation where those are going, but I will definitely get back with you in the future and give you an opportunity to be heard. Now, what's the most important thing about Noam Therapy? Creating an abuse-free environment for you. So, in doing so, we've enlisted some of the best minds on the planet. And like I said earlier, we have actual medical doctors, psychotherapists, attorneys, entrepreneurs, all kinds of people from all walks of life who are now Noam therapists and still doing their day job. And I'll put together some testimonies in the future that I'll play from time to time throughout our clips and through our presentations, so you'll see what they're saying. Or visit Noam Therapy or Abuse Refuge Org, affectionately known as ARROW, ARO, goarrow.org, and visit us. Take a walk around, talk to the leadership, talk to the people who work there. They'll tell you that we probably have the best work environment they've ever seen anywhere on the planet, wherever they work. Very professional, very clear. We help people. We're in a mission of doing that. And we create the environment where people can feel welcome. Not because we're trying to, suck up to them so they can just pay us a lot of money to do what we do. No, because we actually care. And the people at our organization will be clear on that. They'll let you know that this is who we are. We just critiqued ourselves today. And the critique that the whole group of us talked about during a management meeting was something about what most companies fear to do and don't have the courage to do. And that is be transparent. 1. 2, to bring forward those issues that are in concern of us and to have integrity and move forward. We did that just today. And everybody had a say, and we listened to everybody, and it went very well. Why am I mentioning that to you? Because not only in your personal life do you need to develop some type of assertiveness about your courage, but also at your workplace. You need to be just as courageous there as you are at home. People will only ever hurt you because they think they can. So now we're 47 minutes into our talk, and I want to ask, and I can't really get the feedback I want, so I'll answer and ask my question in a rhetorical manner. I want to ask you, when was the last time you found yourself in a set of circumstances where you feared the outcome? Probably this morning, probably this afternoon. The other day, a young lady said something to me in a session, a mini session. She said that the very first thing she looked at when she woke up in the morning or thought about was someone in her life that was maybe not treating her so well. Very first thing. And she couldn't wait to talk to him. She couldn't wait to see him, be around him. And it wasn't a good situation. So I went through the litany of questions that I would normally ask anyone in that circumstance. I basically said to her, I said, when did your father sit you on his knee and say, this is how men should treat you if they don't treat you as best as I treat you? Is that okay? He says, no. I said, when you were such and such age, did this happen to you? No. If you were such and such that age in that circumstance, were you counseled on that by someone? No. And I went through a litany of those questions. And no was pretty much the answer. And I'll tell you something. At the end of that conversation, she was asked this question by me. I said, then why do you think you're wrong? Why do you think you're wrong for having that to be the worst thought and the first thought that you have every day when you first wake up? And because no one's ever taught you how to respond. No one's ever told you that it's okay to not be with someone. No one's ever told you that it will get better in life. No one's ever stopped you and said, it's okay exactly where you are because you're not alone. I went on and on about these things that she was denigrating and hurting herself and killing herself over. And she finally realized that, wait a minute, I don't have to feel this way. There are other ways of doing things. Most of us are conditioned into our fears. They're conditioned to believe the hyperbole or the lies that they tell themselves. It's impossible to lie to yourself. It is impossible. My hair is pink. We all know it isn't pink. It's impossible for me to believe that. But I guarantee you, if somebody walked in every day and they were a bully and they slapped me in the face, maybe punch me because I'm a guy, they just punch me in the face. And they say, hey, your hair's purple. Oh, no, it isn't. I'm going to kick your butt. I'm going to do this, that, and that. Then they say it again on Thursday. Then next week, they do the same thing. Next month, 6 months from now, a year from now, they're doing the same things until one day I'm standing in the mirror looking at my head. And I turn to them and I say, hey, think I got a little purple hair coming in here, because I would be conditioned to believe that along with that abuse, that psychologization of my brain housing group and making me feel inferior to that person and taking on that identity they're giving me. That's how fear works. You're conditioned through your fear to do just about anything. So, Norm Therapy, we teach people to extricate themselves from that fear. Fear is the first thing you need to understand if you want to proceed in life with anything. And I'm looking at an opportunity that as we continue to do these sessions, I'm going to see if I can bring in a way where we can hear your voice and where I can now see your chats. My crew in the background made sure that was up. It was up the whole time and I didn't even notice it. So when you're concentrating on something like this, you have to laugh at yourself. You have to be able to self-critique and laugh. But these are very serious discussions we're having. So, my idea of what we were doing today was to make you understand that there are 7 things you need to, of course, empower yourself when it comes to fear. And I just want to quickly recap. And that's understanding your fear, embracing it, setting small but achievable goals. Don't try to be Hercules or any type of heroine or hero in history first. Set small goals. Learn from your failure. Always learn from your failure. You have to put in action and practice your assertiveness. Assertiveness is not just standing up talking. Oh, please. Assertiveness is believing what you say. Why should someone else believe you if you don't believe it? Believe in what you're saying and what you're standing up against. Be assertive in that manner. That is so crucial in your success. And don't forget, support networks are not all about fighting. I just mentioned karate and a few others. It's not all about fighting. It's about thinking as well. As a matter of fact, most battles are won right here. If you see the standoff that the boxers normally have when they're in their ring and getting ready to weigh in and all of that, and then they do that stare off, that's to intimidate their opponent, to get into their brain housing group. And if you let that work, I remember when I was in the military and when I went through Special Forces school, toughest school I've ever been through in my life, bar nothing. There's nothing I've done tougher. No missions, nothing has ever been tougher than school. Nothing. It's physically and mentally demanding. You're in a whole nother body of water a whole nother existence trying to survive. And they're trying to kill you, literally. They're trying to drown you every single day. But when I went through that, I remember thinking to myself as a young man that at the end of the day, they're not going to kill me. So what am I afraid of? And even though they revived me quite a few times with the CPR and pumping water out of my chest, even though that did happen, I never quit. I took it. I dealt with it. I dealt with it so it wouldn't deal with me. That's how I got through. And you're talking about a guy who hates the water. I hate dark oceans and all of that, the dark lakes and murky water. I hate them. And I've dove consistently in all of them. And I can't stand it to this day. So you have to overcome that fear or control it and move forward. Lastly, reflecting and adjusting. You have to reflect. While reflecting, you'll put yourself in a set of circumstances that you get to see yourself. That's what reflection is all about. That's why I call it reflection, like you would in a mirror. You can see yourself. And once you're able to see yourself clearly, with your flaws and imperfections as well, but also your accolades and your accomplishments, when you can see that, it's better, you're better able to balance. And once you're better able to balance and find clarity in what you see, because the 3 tenets of norm therapy are clarity, assessment, and truth. The acronym CAT, clarity, assessment, and truth. With that, once you're clear about something, you can assess it. Once you can assess it, you can extricate the lies and the abuse and the other things that are holding you back from that. And at the end, you'll find truth. And that's who you are. It's not my truth. It's your truth. It's not my existence. It's yours. It's not my normal. It's yours. That's why we call it norm therapy. We're looking for your normal, if you ever had one. Lastly, courage is nurtured. It's not an overnight thing. Nobody's going to beat you in the chest and say, okay, toughen up. You're going to be okay. You'll make it. That's not going to happen. Not ever. And when it does happen and you do find some result, chances are it won't last. You have to nurture courage. You have to nudge away your fears. Go to the freeze or flight mode and take yourself there over something you're afraid of. But be in control of that environment. And we can help you with that too. Be in control of that environment so you don't run amok. I really enjoyed speaking here today. And I'm looking at all your stuff in the chat now, and thank you very much for that. We're going to promote our next event widely, much greater, now that we know all the bugs and we figured everything out. And we hope you to see us there. Hope you see us there on Thursday, this coming week. I think it's December 7th at 2 p.m. again. And we're going to be talking about how is love may or may not be holding you hostage. And I will talk you through quite a bit of experiential knowledge as well as studied information about what it is that we consider love to be, and how can we bring it into our life without having it control us or put us in a set of circumstances where we consistently abuse as a result. Thank you all for coming. If you have any questions now, to put them in the chat for me, I'll answer them now, and then we'll end this session. Thank you, Nirmala. Everyone, listen, appreciate this. I'm going to end the live session now. But remember, Thursday and Saturday, we're going to do a lot of promoting between now and then. I'd like for you to share everything with us. I have so much more to say, but this was so impromptu. Even though it was scheduled, I made a mistake and gave the wrong link out. And we had to go redo everything and figure it out for this restream. And we just do that. And when you make mistakes, you just own up to it and move forward. That's what you do. Same with fear. Don't forget, fear. Courage is not being gallant and courageous and running around winning battles, although it takes an element of courage. Real courage is just controlling your fears and moving forward anyway. That's real courage. So we look forward to seeing you there. There'll be announcements made to come to it. Please invite your friends now that we have time and we figured out all the kinks. Get with Kelly Dean, the Global Executive Director of the organization, Kim Carpenter, the Norm Therapy Manager, or Nicole Leonard, who's the head of our human resources right now. They're your point of contacts and administrations for all of our live sessions. And of course, you can always reach me. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you all. And if you go to the nonprofit site, don't forget to make a donation. And if you go to Norm Therapy and you think you need some help, please, by all means, purchase some sessions. Thank you very much. Have a great day.